The news begins in West Africa, where majority of Nigerian cities have had electricity restored after experiencing total blackout on Sunday due to the national grid collapse. Power generation fell to 0 megawatts, causing widespread blackouts in major cities, including the capital, Abuja. Now, various electricity distribution companies across the country sent messages apologizing to customers regarding the incident. In a statement, Nigeria's transmission company announced that the national grid has been restored after repairs were carried out. And this was the first grid collapse this year. It's collapsed several times last year. And to talk about this, I've been joined live in the studio by a public affairs analyst, Dotun Ojon. Good morning. Glad to have you join me.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Let me start by finding out, what's your reaction to the continuous collapse of the national grid?
Continuous. It is continuous, just the same reaction. We had one in December, just at a point that the new minister actually said that the government was making effort. December, grid collapsed again. And it's been something that has been going back and forth. And you will agree with me that no economy can actually grow without electricity. Today, with operating at the maximum level, we have the capacity to generate about 10,000 megawatts of electricity. But out of that, less than 5,000 are the megawatts that we are able to actually distribute. And this is one of the reasons why it's putting a lot of cost on doing business in Nigeria. And you will have also heard that a lot of companies are actually leaving the country. So electricity is central. But again, we've had this challenge of meeting the demand of over 200 million people. And experts have come out to say that we need to generate at least 50,000 megawatts of electricity, distribute same to people for us to be able to kickstart the growth that we need in our economy. So I am saddened. Anytime this happens, I know that it's not just about for the household usage. It's about the fact that we are in a critical time in Nigeria today. And electricity seems to be central to whatever development that we want to experience in our manufacturing sector and even the economy.
So I know you referenced generating more megawatts, for people in Nigeria, but what else can be done to stop, this constant power collapse?
Now, the burden on our national grid is actually a problem. And this problem actually is not new. But of course, one of the promises that was made by the Nigerian government was that once the partial privatization that was done in 2013 was carried out, that some of these problems will become a thing of the past. And you will agree with me that 11 years down the lane, we are still where we are. So we'll continue to talk about generating more. We'll continue to talk about infrastructure. And you can only build infrastructure when you involve all the stakeholders. Now, what do I mean by stakeholders? As we are now, the president just signed an executive order actually empowering state and even local council to be able to generate and distribute power within their locality. That means that you can actually generate power as a state and distribute same to your community. The practice has always been, even if you generate, you still need to pour it on the national grid before it is actually distributed to people. But with this now, one of the things that can be done is for the stakeholders to actually be serious in deliberately investing in infrastructure that will make them generate, and because they've already have the power to actually distribute. But again, one thing that I noticed personally, that one reason why I think that a lot of people are actually, a lot of state governments and governors are running away from investment in infrastructure is that electricity infrastructure is very, very capital intensive. And it's not something that you put in money today and you get result tomorrow. So, and some of our achievements in Nigeria by politicians is actually to win the next election. So it has to be more deliberate kind of thing. And they run away from some of these things. So deliberate investment in electricity infrastructure by other stakeholders, aside from the GENCO, the DISCO, and even the federal government of Nigeria. The state governors, the local government chairman can actually look at how they can generate and distribute to places with agri potential and entrepreneurship ability.
Okay, just to quickly chip in, Nigeria loses millions in revenue every time the power grid collapses. Why is there no penalty for system failures?
It's not only limited to the electricity sector, the power sector, so to say. It's a general thing today in Nigeria that wrongdoers are not just, they don't get punished. And it's almost becoming a culture and a systemic kind of failure within our government practice. Now, questions need to be asked. And when questions are asked, penalties need to actually be meted out to anyone or everyone that is involved in some of these failures that we often experience. But again, the story will always be, oh, it's a malfunction of the system. And this complaint is backed up by the reality of the fact that, if you are aware, that most of the gadgets and the instruments we use, some of the infrastructure are as old as I cannot mention. So until we get to a point where we deliberately invest, change some of this old infrastructure, we may continue to have back and forth, because humans, the first instinct of man is to lie on issues like this. And once you create an opportunity for them to lie on anything, on machine, they will just put the lie on machine. But if you deliberately put investment and you supervise your investment in a way that you want result, and everybody in the community knows that you want result, then I think everyone will actually sit up.
Finally, Dotun, would you say the privatization of the power sector has positively impacted Nigerians, or what can we do differently?
No, it has not. And I've said it before, the satanic idea came in around 1996, where the Nigerian government kept echoing the fact that government does not have business in business. And this led to, you remember in 2001, when the then president, Olusegun Obasanjo, actually appointed his then deputy to be the chairman of privatization committee. What they told Nigerian people at that point in time is that once they privatize the power sector, that everything is going to work. But everything, virtually everything that was privatized at that point in time, none of them actually works today. So it brings us to the question of what should be the role of government in business. Government should be deliberate. And I'm going to cite two examples quickly. You discover that the transport system in the UK is a bit different from the one in the US because of the investment, deliberate investment of government in the UK. The tourism sector in the United Arab Emirates is totally different from what you have around town because of deliberate investment and involvement of government. So we are not at a point now where we will just let go and say, oh, let's allow the private sectors to run, because the first instinct of a capitalist is to make gain. Whether the people get satisfied in the process is a secondary thing entirely. So we must be at the forefront. The privatization of the power sector has not helped anyone. In fact, we are going down. Generating 10,000 megawatts, inability to distribute 5,000 megawatts, these are not a good sign. For a community of 200 million people, we should be talking about generating 50,000 megawatts of electricity, empowering people to be able to blossom and prosper within their space by creating a good business environment. And there's no business environment that can be created without electricity, unfortunately.
And that's a fine place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time in the studio. Dotun Ojon, a public affairs analyst, thank you once again. Voting held in some 26 states of the Federation for the election of federal and state legislatures on Saturday. While the rerun election is necessitated by voluntary resignation or death of duly elected representative, by-elections were ordered by the courts in disputed areas. The election was greeted with a low turnout, with some being disputed and others rescheduled for another day. And to talk about these, I've been joined live on the news by Shola Omolayo, a public affairs analyst. Good morning. Glad to have you join me.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, let me just kick off with your assessment of the by and rerun elections that held over the weekend.
Well, I just I see the whole situation as moribund, and I believe that nothing has changed from the format of electioneering in Nigeria. Good enough, we have a specimen from the north, from the east, and from the west, which shows that either the electoral body or the people themselves, we are still in the same train. Nothing has changed so far. That's my own view.
Okay, we saw low vote turnout in certain areas. There seems to be voter apathy. What do you think can be done to address this?
Look, nothing is different here. It's still the same thing we experienced during the general election, where people were celebrating that, yeah, we have a lot of people who came out to vote. With all the campaign, the investment on social media, the outburst on the streets at the general election, what did you see? What is the total broadcast for the whole nation with all the clamor from the young ones to the old people to those who felt they've been chastised by government institution, some individual power brokers that kept themselves in a corner? Nothing has changed. Look at the total broadcast of what we have in the general election, comparing it with the numbers of expectation of vote by INEC. And it still transits to what you are having now. And the conclusive of this by-election still is a symbol of the old mindset of our belief in the governance of nations. And it shows that the people still don't trust government. They don't. And it's depleting, like depreciating almost every day. And look at the officials of INEC, the display of arrogancy. How could you be telling us at this age and time that a whole ballot paper got lost? Why would you? How do you experience that? How? How do you explain to Nigerians? How? The conduct so far. If you say, okay, we have low turnout, what of the conduct of the INEC officials?
Yes, I was also going to go
areas?
there. If I may, Shola, I wanted to get your perspective. We've seen, allegations of INEC officers allegedly, feeling election results. Although INEC, has come out to say, that's fake. But then, what's your perspective when it comes to orientating staff members of those conducting elections in Nigeria?
Orientating who? Are they not part of us? Are they not Nigerians
Yes.
who are going through stuff? You are talking of frustrated human beings. You are assigning positions to them. What do you think? We have a corrupt environment where discipline is not put in place. In the general election that we had, how many people have been arrested? Where are they? The ones arrested, what punishment has been placed on them, either INEC officials or any of their agency? The chairman of INEC as a leader, has he come to apologize to Nigerians openly and letting us know that these are the areas where they know they have problems and they are going to use some of this by-election or further election to appease us? Have you seen any of that? So we just keep rolling the box almost every time.
Looking ahead.
Almost every time.
Yes. Now, let's talk solutions now. Looking ahead, what would you recommend should be the proper conduct when it comes to conducting elections in Nigeria?
What should I recommend? What should I recommend? My suggestion.
Yes, your suggestions.
Can we blow off all elections that we have held and restart all this election all over again, where we don't need to go to court to endorse winners? Can all Nigerians agree with this present leaders to say, okay, we allow you to govern us for this period of time and zero all election? If you are lucky, if you have 2 years to spend to stay for 2027, when election commence, when the campaign will commence by 2000, the internal electoral system commenced by 2005. By 2006, you begin to see the manifestation full board. Then by 2007, we start having another election. Can we zero all these errors? Can we also roll back the timetable that we used to have in the early 80s, the 80s, down to the early 90s before we have all this skeletal crisis, where the election will commence, will start from the local government, transit to House of Assembly, moving to gubernatorial election, moving to House of Rep and Senate, going like that, having the gubernatorial election that will now determines the presidential election that will be coming at the best time instead of starting from the top. Like the former president will say, everything is from the top. It's not so, it should start from the bottom. That is when you are going to have solution on any election that will be coming up in this country. Else, it can never change, at least not for now.
Yeah, finally.
Not for now. We are dealing with a great cartel that has hijacked the political structure of this country. Then they held it from the top. They will continue to invest money. Do you know, I tell a lot of people, they say they like our money, they want to chop our money. No, it is not about money, it's about power. That's
finally,
why,
Shola, yeah, because of the time.
Area, the strongest man in your area is the DPO of that community. No matter how rich you are, if a DPO sent for the richest man in that country, may God burn you where me.
If I may quickly ask you, because of our time, Shola, what would you say that has been the impact of staggered elections on Nigeria's electoral process? I'm talking about the by-elections.
By-election is because we have it wrong from the onset. I told you just now that the best way to have a stable election and have a futuristic hope in the political struggle of this country and the stability that we are looking for is to start our electionary process from the local government. So we should come together in agreement to say all this election that has happened in the past years from 1999 should be subside it, let it go. Let this present leader, let us agree together. It's like agreeing on a national issue, on having a stable election in this country that will not go much in violence. There's no how you are going to do it, even in the developed country. You see some minior crisis in election period. But the best way to have it right in our own is to have a suspension, have a pause, and agree that anybody that is in power today, if you have a vacancy in any of this office, just appoint somebody to go in there and let us agree that we are going to roll it over again. Let INEC go back to board and say, okay, in this coming year, the election that will be happening in this country will start from the local government. Local government, it will involve the individual that we know that if you are not popular, if you are not reliable in your community, you will not be voted for. But in a situation where you have a president in office already, where you have voted a president, every other thing follows just one line. And I just pray, the way we are going and you are seeing this pocket of crisis going on, I just pray we don't end up in one political party.
Hopefully not, but thank you so much for your expertise on the news. Shola Omolayo, a public affairs analyst. Thank you once again. The Alumni Association of Igbobi College, one of Nigeria's oldest secondary schools, called for improvements in both morals and educational standards across the country. They emphasized this message on the 92nd Founders' Day anniversary celebration and Merit Award presentation honoring deserving individuals. Niyi Omoni has details.
Once boys and students of the prestigious Igbobi College, the boys are now grown men who have established themselves as respected individuals and leaders. They serve as captains of industries and top principals across Nigeria, upholding a legacy of excellence and achievement worth emulating. As Igbobi College celebrates its 92nd anniversary with a luncheon and merit awards ceremony, the Old Boys Association believes these better illustrates the transitions and accomplishments of the school's esteemed alumni over the decades.
Oh, I think today is a great day for ICOBA. So 92 years that the school has existed, Igbobi College. And of course, we take the opportunity to honor our best who have established themselves in different walks of life.
Beyond the festivities, the Old Boys, as they are fondly called, believe there is much to learn from the school's principle and educational model. According to them, if adopted more widely, such practices could help further improve the quality of education across Nigeria.
if you don't have a good quality teaching community, you cannot produce the best students. And this is what we try to encompass in showing that that is the way forward, because it actually works, because we see the results.
You can't give what you don't have. And we have a situation where the people in charge of education do not even know the standards they should aspire to. So we have to find a way of going back to the basics. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. They should just imitate us. We're doing a lot. Do what we're doing, and we will all develop together. As it is now, we are even advising some schools, on what to do.
For the award recipient, the recognition serves as a call to greater service and impact.
In my life, I had close to over 80 to 90, close to 100 awards, both locally and internationally. I would tell you with all sense of humility that this is the best, the highest, however, because the best recognition comes from those that know you.
Anybody who passed out of either a secondary school or a university, and whatever we have become today is because of what that school put in us. So it is time for everybody who passed out of a school to give back to that school what they put in your life to become whatever you are today.
Having produced many eminent Nigerians, the faith-based school advocates support for initiatives that can strengthen moral character and learning across the country. In Lagos for News Central, Ni Omoni.
The news continues in Southern Africa, where Namibia's Vice President, Dangolo Mbumba, has been sworn in as president following the death on Sunday of previous President Hage Geingob. This comes after 82-year-old Hage Geingob died early on Sunday while receiving medical treatment at a hospital in the capital, Windhoek. A veteran of the country's independence struggle, Geingob had been diagnosed with cancer and revealed the details to the public last month. In the meantime, Mbumba will serve in the role until elections due later this year. In honoring his predecessor, Mbumba stated President Geingob, who was the main architect of the constitution, led the nation to remain peaceful and stable.
During this difficult period of mourning, I urge all Namibians to remain united and to keep the bereaved family, the bereaved Geingob family and clan in our prayers. I take on this heavy mantle, cognizant of the weight of this responsibility to serve all people of Namibia.
Malawian journalist Gregory Gunway is on the run following the publishing of an expose on the questionable and substantial payments made by that country's defense force to a firm implicated in corruption. The payment was part of a larger deal secured for the purchase of 32 armored personnel carriers. In a statement Gunway published on Facebook, he says sources within the military urged him to go into hiding. Meanwhile, according to Corruption Watch, Malawi government officials confirmed that Malawi Defense Force intended to arrest Gunway for allegedly endangering the state security. And to talk about this, I've been joined live by the investigative journalist, Gregory Gunway. Good morning. Glad to have you join me.
Morning.
Yes. Just give us a brief overview of what you exposed, that led to threats on your life.
I didn't get you. What did you say?
Give us details of your publication, which has led to threats on your life.
I think my publications back to back all to do with the Malawi Defense Force. 2 weeks before the current publication, we published also a story based on an investigation where the Defense Force was also involved in dubious helicopter deal. Basically, I think they were intending to purchase 2 Bell 412 helicopters at a price of over $8.6 million US. But now the plan was to replace defunct helicopters with concern raised about the ones that were about to be bought were depreciating and they lack readiness. They last flew about 13 years ago. So this story was followed by another one, the one that now has made the army start looking for me. Basically, it's to do with the over 19 million US dollars for the purchase of armored carriers amid its corruption allegations. So basically, the details of the procurement of the armored carriers are that the government is trying to involve an individual who is being investigated by our own Malawi's Anti-Corruption Bureau, as well as the UK's National Crimes Agency. So because these have leaked from the army, the Malawi Defense Force wanted to have me arrested and interrogated so that they discover the source of the leak within their establishment.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why I decided to be on the run.
Gregory, if you can, just give us a lot more detail or a bit more regarding threats to your life. What exactly are they telling you? Just give us, a little more about that.
Okay, so basically what I'm being told is that the army is hell-bent at finding who the sources are within their establishment. So they started sending the military intelligence who had been following me, and this was communicated to me through the various sources within the army who are part of the high-level discussions of the plans and the arrangements that they had. So in the process, I was asked not to go back to the office as well as to my residence. So I started the changing places so that I make myself a moving target. Until last Friday, I had to flee by leaving the country to a destination that I am going to keep confidential.
We'll try to connect subsequently with Gregory. The World Health Organization's Regional Director for Africa, Dr. Mashidiso Moeti, has expressed deep concern over the devastating impact of cancer in Africa. Speaking on World Cancer Day, she revealed that in 2022, cancer claimed the lives of 500,000 Africans. Dr. Moeti highlighted the prevalence of breast, cervical, prostate, colorectal, and liver cancers, attributing 50% of new cases to these types. She warned that without urgent intervention, cancer-related deaths in Africa could reach 1 million annually by 2030. Dr. Moeti urged leaders to prioritize cancer prevention and care, stressing the need for universal access to life-saving interventions. Despite progress in prevention and care, cancer survival rates remain low, averaging 12%, far below the global average. And now let's turn to East Africa, where British African Minister Andrew Michel says Britain would commit a further 100 million euro to help up to 3 million mothers and babies in Ethiopia get access to health care, a new fund to provide medicines and vaccines designed to end preventable deaths. This comes as food crisis and triggered by war and drought. The government says 16 million people across the country are facing food shortages, with almost half of those suffering emergency or severe levels of food insecurity. Now, that means many are not just hungry, they are also starving. Doctors at the hospitals say the numbers of severely malnourished children being admitted have doubled since 2020, when the war between Tigrayan forces and Ethiopian and Eritrean armies began. A ceasefire was agreed in 2022, but the impact of the conflict still lingers, with at least 1 million people still unable to return home, remaining in the region. The World Food Programme is calling for immediate, unimpeded and safe access to conflict-hit areas of Sudan to provide food to millions of displaced people facing acute hunger amid warnings that the war, which seems forgotten, has potential implications for regional stability. Speaking at the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, Kenzili urged the international community to wake up to the threat posed by the escalating conflict in Sudan. The WFP says more than 9 months of conflict has exerted an unimaginable toll on civilians. It calls the situation beyond dire, noting that almost 18 million people are facing acute hunger. At least 37 civilians have been killed and 18 abducted in renewed attacks in an area disputed between South Sudan and Sudan. Authorities say it is the latest attack in a 3-year-long spate of clashes in the oil-rich region of Abuja. The area's interim administration said the majority of those killed during the weekend were women and children. Now, markets and residential areas were touched and 1,000 heads of cattle looted. Minister of Information, Culture and Youth and Sport in the Abuja Special Administration, Bulios Coach Agua, condemned the attacks and urged the national government in Juba to address the conflict between Ngog Dinka of Abuja and the Twik Dinka of Warrap. In North Africa, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi holds talk with French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné in Cairo, amid diplomatic efforts to halt the nearly 4-month-long war in the Gaza Strip. Spokesman for the presidency, Chancellor Dr. Hamed Fahmy, said the meeting tackled bilateral relations and French Foreign Minister Serge conveyed France President Emmanuel Macron's greetings to President el-Sisi. Now, during the talks, the two sides confirmed the importance of continuing extensive coordination and cooperation between their countries. The meeting reviewed Egypt's unyielding and persistent efforts for the various actors to reach a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and provide access to humanitarian aid and relief to end the severe humanitarian catastrophe the people of Gaza have been enduring. In a recent development, the Chilean Ministry of the Interior has raised the death toll from the forest fires to 112 and noted that the medical service has identified 32 bodies. The highest authorities of the Valparaiso region in the center of the country have requested that the work of the investigation of deaths be accelerated, given the high number of people reported to the police as missing. In a press conference, the mayor of the city, Maserena Rapamonti, said 190 people are still missing in Vina del Mar. A second curfew has been imposed in 4 communities of Valparaiso in order to restrict traffic in impacted areas and facilitate relief work for the victims and removal of the deceased. The curfew takes effect on Monday from 10 a.m. local time until 6 p.m. local time.
Y mi mamá se la llevó una señora, mi mamá se lo solita, ella tiene 90 años. Salió una señora que en un automóvil la tomó y se la llevó, la dejó lejos, o sea, tratando de guardarla. Así que después tratando de ubicarla a ella, no sabíamos de mi hermano, después a los otros días nos enteramos de que uno de nuestros hermanos había fallecido en el incendio, no pudo salir. Y ahora vamos a tener que empezar de cero todo de nuevamente. No nos queda otra, pero esto fue muy rápido, muy rápido. Como que no nos dimos cuenta. Gracias a Dios, la casa de mis papás.
Australia's government on Monday says writer Yang Jun has been given a suspended death sentence in China, describing it as a harrowing news. The Chinese-born Australian citizen has been in jail in China since 2019 on spying accusations. In a news conference, Foreign Minister Penny Wong said the Australian government is appalled at this outcome. Wong, however, said the death sentence may be commuted to life in jail after a period of 2 years. Australian ministers said they will be communicating their response in the strongest terms and further stated that the Chinese ambassador would be summoned to hear Australia's objection. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott meets with 13 other Republican governors in an Eagle Pass public park that has been the center of an extraordinary standoff between federal and state officials. Now, during a press conference, they pledged to intensify the efforts to enhance the border security operation led by Governor Abbott. Meanwhile, the Border Patrol has continued to apprehend a stream of migrants that shows no sign of drying up. The convoy gathered that in a tiny town along the Rio Grande River, which forms a natural border between the United States and Mexico, as debate swells again about how to address record-high migrant crossings. Hundreds of thousands of people from Central and South America and beyond have waded across the river in recent months in hopes of better lives in the United States.
To send a loud and clear message that we are banding together to fight to ensure that we will be able to maintain our constitutional guarantee that states will be able to defend against any type of imminent danger or an invasion. This area we are in right now was at one time not too long ago an area where there would be 3,000, 4,000, sometimes 5,000 people crossing illegally.
Stories. Olympic silver medalist Blessing Oborodudu has qualified for the next month's African Games in Accra, Ghana, as well as Paris 2024 Olympic qualifiers. Oborodudu's qualification was secured after her defeat against her opponent Tokere Apa of Bayelsa in the 68-kilogram category via pinfall at the National Wrestling Trials, which ended in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State on Sunday. Blessing remains the only Nigerian to ever win a medal in wrestling after winning a silver medal in the women's 68 kg freestyle event at the Tokyo 2022 Olympics. Ebibigos of Bayelsa and Hannah Ruben of the Nigerian Army also came out victorious in the 72 kg and 76 kg respectively. Meanwhile, in the men's male freestyle, US-based sensation Ashton Mutuwa, representing Plateau State, caused a major upset in the 125 category. Mutuwa defeated national champion Progress Benson of Rivers to secure the African Games qualification and Olympic qualifiers in the men's 65 kg. Stephen Simon of Bayelsa defeated former national champion Amos Daniel of Bayelsa State. And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Nigeria restores power after national grid collapses over the weekend. Weekend clashes in South Sudan's Abyei region leave dozens dead. Senegal's former Prime Minister Aminata Toure arrested amid protests. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.